What is up so far? The two viewers who are in our stream. Are you one of those viewers, Leroy? Do you know?
No.
Okay, cool. Just making sure. So people are actually watching us. That's great. Yeah, it's hard to believe it. 9:40 East Coast time. Close to about the time we normally start. We're doing a live show. It's been months since we've done a live show in this particular time, our original time slot. Who would have thought?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with you, sir?
Nothing much. Nothing much. Um, just tired.
Just tired. Okay, fair enough. That is Leroy. I am Michael. This is the We Trine channel, our Nerdy by Nature production. For those who know us, you know it's sometimes it's a struggle for us to get live. Sometimes it's a struggle for us to be taped. But we try. We do stuff when we can. And by the way, your video is slightly glitching every once in a while. I don't know
Hmm.
if you see. I don't know if you see it or not. But
Yeah, I do.
okay, cool.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, we'll see what's go. Oh Lord. I mean, I can still see you. You appear to be smooth, but it.
Hold
Oh
on.
Jesus.
I'm gonna try
Uh huh.
something.
Okay. Oh Lord, Leroy's gone for a second. He's still got audio, so we'll see what's going on with that. Uh, as we have said before, this is the I don't want to say the garbage truck on fire because another popular group of people do that as well. But we are the struggle bus of the internet is what we call it, the
Yep.
struggle bus of social media. Yeah,
A struggle
um,
bus of video channels.
of video channels. Yeah, um, yeah. So it's been a minute for us. For people who are slowly coming into the chat, I am currently working a different shift at my job for, I'm hoping it'll be done in April sometime, is what I'm thinking. And hopefully we'll be able to go back to doing more regular content. But that has definitely put a damper in our plans of doing reaction videos, trailer reactions, all that kind of stuff, and live press plays. We're trying to find ways around it. We did put up a video earlier this week on Furiosa, and we tried to put up a video on Star Wars, but apparently Disney said no. We'll have to figure that out. But yeah.
Yeah, we got a copyright strike for Star Wars.
Hmm.
So I didn't look. I meant to see if anybody got the video up. Like
I'd
if
imagine some
anybody,
people have probably have the video up.
well, like if anybody, I don't know. I meant to look, but I didn't get a chance to, and I've been a little
Yeah.
busy.
No,
So
I get it. I get it.
but um, it's interesting that got a copyright strike.
Hmm.
Like the whole video just can't be posted. Like that was shocking to me. Like usually they'll be like, "Hey, they won't let you monetize it," but they'll leave the
Right.
video up.
Yeah. Yeah. This
They'll
like
not
this
even
whole thing
let
you said
you.
got blocked.
Yeah, they'll not even let you post it. And they gave in the email that said, "Here's what you can do to post a video, that video without it getting blocked." And I was like, "Well, that kind of defeats the purpose of us posting it if we did all the things that you said we should do."
Right.
Um, so, but
Yeah.
yeah, there's other stuff people have been asking us to do. Aliens, Romulus. There's a new Fall Guy trailer, Beetlejuice.
Are you
Hell,
still
there's a
hyped for
bunch of
Fall
stuff.
Guys? Because I am. Or the Fall Guy. I'm still hyped for that movie.
I am, but it's like I'm like define hype.
I mean, I think it's going to be a good time at the movies. I feel like it'll entertain me like a Fast and Furious type movie would. I don't need it to be an Oscar-winning movie. I just think it'll be a good time at the movie theater, and
Yeah,
that's
I
all I
mean
think.
that's like hype for it is I guess is like I'm hyped for Aliens Romulus. I
Hmm.
was hyped for um what's that movie I just watched? Dune 2. Like I like
Hmm.
certain movies I'm excited for. Like that's just a like I think it's gonna be a good time. Is it one of those movies that I have to go to the theater to see? No, it's not.
Interesting.
It's a movie like I thought now I haven't seen the latest trailer and it may change my mind, but like Furiosa is a movie that I have to see in theaters.
Sure.
Furiosa is a movie that is like that's in my wheelhouse of things that I need to see.
And you picked that up on just from the trailer, like the way it was shot. It just seems such these grand vistas and the scope.
I mean, and here's the thing: it doesn't have to be like when you look at how much a movie costs to go see it in the movie theater. I don't need it to be the biggest blockbuster. I just need it to hit that pressure point in my brain that makes me say I have to watch this movie.
Hmm.
And Fall Guy doesn't hit that for me. Like it looks interesting. It looks like it's something I would like to see, but Furiosa follows in that vein. It's from George Miller. It doesn't have to be this big blockbuster. It looks interesting to me. It hits that wheelhouse, but it fits in my wheelhouse. Fall Guy is a remake, and like perfect example, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Is that what it just?
Sure.
That don't care.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't want to disparage anybody who made the film. I'm not trying to make fun of people who enjoy it. If that's your thing, that's your thing. I watched the last one on a streaming service or DVD. I don't even remember. I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Sure.
Like it doesn't. It's not my type of. It doesn't interest me. And Furiosa does. Dune 2 does. Aliens Romulus. I haven't seen the new Crow trailer, but I'm gonna be honest with you.
Hmm.
It's not like when I hear Alex Proyas did a posted online the difference between a Crow remake and the original Crow is Brandon Lee died while making this film.
Hmm.
Like the original Crow is not just a film. And so for some of these movies, they're not just movies. They're cultural phenomenons. And so for this is just an IP that some theater or some movie franchise or movie studio thought that they could turn into a franchise. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Sure.
Whereas, and so that's why I say when that experience at the theater, it's got to hit that. Remember the Matrix? Did you watch the Matrix Animatrix?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember when they first started the Matrix and the two opening animes where like the machines had like used humans as experiments, and there was this one part where they showed a man with his brain cut off or his head cut off and his brain was exposed, and like there was a machine just poking his brain and he would cry, and there was another poke and he would laugh. That's what I need
Okay.
that to hit me in my head to where I'm
Right.
like ha 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 ha, oh, Leroy sad now. I
Uh-huh.
None of those. Fall Guy doesn't do that for me.
Okay.
It looks funny, but that's
Yeah.
something I watch with the wife. But it's not like, hey, give me two to go see Fall Guy.
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah,
See, we got 10-7 Prime and Herbert Thornton in the chat. Welcome. Hopefully more people come in. Thank you for joining us here. Yeah, so this press play is a little different because we were trying to figure out a full transparency with the new shift in my job schedule now. I have not kept up in a lot of nerd culture and pop culture world stuff. So we were trying to figure out what we could talk about that Leroy has done a better job of keeping up than I have, but what was I going to be able to try and talk with him equally about? And I kind of came up with the idea of talking about console generations, console refreshes, and do we need them? Specifically, there's talk that the PlayStation 5, PS5 Pro is supposed to come out later this year. We've gotten the details or the leak details that seem to be confirmed by a lot of reputable outlets on what it's going to be. And my question that I posed to Leroy and to the chat as more people come in, do we need a console refresh this early? Do we need it at all? Um, I'll get the ball rolling. I would say short answer is no, and we can expound on that over the course of 45 to 50 minutes here, but I don't think we need it. I don't think that we have seen everything the PS5 can do or the Xbox Series X can do. PC continues to be the master race in being above those and doing all the kind of cool stuff, but I don't think it's needed yet. I feel like we're kind of rushing that out, and I feel like Sony is, to be fair, I mean it's not unusual, and we can Google this, but I don't remember the date from when the PS4 launched to the PS4 Pro. I don't remember how many years it was. I feel like it might have been 4 or 5 years, maybe. I can't remember. So this is kind of in line with that, but I don't think it's needed from Sony yet. I think it's kind of them pushing a panic button because they didn't sell as many PS5s as they thought they would at this point.
I don't I don't think it's a panic button push. I think it is an opportunity to get a machine out, a refresh. I don't think it's a panic button push. I do think it's an idea of being able to offer a another machine that's a little faster, a little better, tying it because when this console refresh was talked about, it was talked about around the time that we got the GTA 6 trailer. In other words, that's when it really started picking up. Well, would you buy a PS5 Pro? And is this the console to play GTA 6 on? Is that and those things were kind of tied together. I feel like this is kind of like injecting something into the market to get more people to buy it. I don't think it's a panic push, but I do think it's something that we both work at a job where people do things that way because it's always been done. So recently we have been getting a refresh of a console a couple of years into its life cycle. I think this time is different for a number of reasons. One is COVID. When the PS5 and Xbox Series X was released, it was done and then COVID hit. So all that development that publishers would have been able to do and developers would have been able to do to build a game specifically for this console was lost because people working from home, we didn't know how long this was going to last, how to make this work. And you had a customer base of 100 million units on the PS4 alone. You weren't leaving that behind. So it was kind of like, how do you, there wasn't a cutoff point. So I wonder if this will be the cutoff point saying we're no longer doing cross generation games. Like we're not doing that anymore. So that's one reason I think they're doing this, but I do think it's a situation where we don't need it, but also think it's a situation of it almost seems like Microsoft and Sony are trying the iPhone formula of every couple of years you get a new phone, every couple of years you just upgrade that console. And I I wonder if that's going to work. Like imagine if you went to Sony's website, kind of like you go to Verizon, and here's a PS4 Pro, here's a PS4, here's a PS5, here's a PS5 Pro, and you buy which one you think fits your lifestyle. And I think that's what they're trying to do because they see the success that Apple has with selling $1,000 freaking cell phones. Now, this is an iPhone. I'm not saying it is, but that's what cell phones have become. And I wonder if that's part of it.
I could see that. I think the biggest issue though is it did they start the idea of a console upgrade every couple years too late? Because
Yeah.
Sony kind of got on the, or not Sony, Apple really kind of started that revolution. Now, what is it? The iPhone 15, I think,
15.
or whatever. So I mean,
Uh,
that has been around for so long that people are just part of it, and I feel like it's kind of the system that almost too big to fail type people just expect it. So they kind of you have those people who are techies who want to get the newest, latest, greatest thing. So they're always going to be in front. But I wonder if Sony kind of jumped on that bandwagon too late because with Microsoft, whatever the newest console, not like the new generation, but whatever their refresh is, apparently theirs isn't going to be so much of an upgrade in specs. Maybe it's just they figured out a way to make their processes cheaper to produce so they can probably give you the same system at a cheaper price because it's cheaper to mass produce the stuff. At least that's what the latest specs I saw for Microsoft is. They're not doing like a Xbox Series Pro anymore. They're just doing maybe a a slight revamp of the design, which would be interesting.
Oh, and
So
it looks like from the specs that we got, they're looking is I think it's called Brooklyn. Is that the code name that they had for it? Um,
I know it is a code name, but I don't know which console it is. But yeah,
it, but they're looking to go all digital. That was the speculation that these new consoles that Microsoft comes out with will be all digital. I think there's a couple of things, and bear with me as I say this. I think you're right in this, in the idea that you said, hey, these consoles, the cell phone manufacturers, Apple, Samsung, Google, all kind of knew what they were doing, and this whole refresh of a phone as technology advanced, and it did make more sense to upgrade your phone because the features that these phones had changed overnight with the megapixels, with the cameras, the storage. I mean, I remember when your phone had 100 gig uh um what's the word I'm looking for, storage. So
hmm
storage, that was a big thing. Then you could expand your storage with micro SD cards. I remember when the megapixels were a big deal, 15, 20, like now when you look at these cameras, you're getting, like, if you look at the iPhone 15, you're getting, here's a little thing that we do at my job. And we have some cameras, and they're they're not as user friendly, I would say, in some instances when stuff that we shoot. So issued we've all been issued iPhone 12s. The iPhone 12 shoots in 4K. There are times when we're on shoots, I'll watch a photographer whip out a cell phone and be like, just for this B-roll, I'm going to shoot this on my phone. And we're shooting at 4K 24 frames per second. I'm That's the 12. So I can only imagine what the 15 is doing right now. As a matter of
hmm
fact, I'm looking at upgrading my wife's phone to the 15, because she has a 12. It's just one of those things where that industry lent itself to that, whereas consoles didn't. The reason why you bought a console was because you bought this machine versus a PC gamer. They like tweaking, interchanging parts, pieces, upgrading the hard drive themselves, taking out the graphics card, all of those different things. PC gamers have been doing for years. Console manufacturers, the idea was you bought this thing and you didn't have to do anything. You didn't have to tweak anything. You just put in the disc. So I
To add to
think,
that, and I don't want to cut you off, but I want to
no, go
say it
ahead.
before I forget it. As you say that, you talk about how people like the modular industry of PCs. People are in such an uproar of having to go into either their Xbox or their PS5 and add extra hard drive space
Yep.
to it. So I
Hmm.
mean, it just goes to your point. But keep going.
Yep. And so, like, this idea of people who were upset because they bought their console and they're like, it only has 500 gigs of storage. And they were like, and granted, Sony in the beginning was like, hey, if you want to upgrade your hard drive, here's how you do it. And people were like, why the fudge would I do that? I bought this so I wouldn't have to do that. And then PC gamers were over there laughing because they were like, we've been doing this for years. What are you bitching about?
hmm
But that's the difference between the two markets. And I think that's where people are not understanding, or maybe they are understanding and they don't like it. I don't think this refresh is a good thing, but I understand that Sony's going to try to do whatever they can. And same thing with Microsoft. But here's the other side of it. As much as I think that these consoles don't need a refresh because I don't see the reason behind it, let's take it a different step. I think the Nintendo Switch is long due for a refresh because I think that hardware was
So
old when it came out.
a
And
refresh or a new system?
I would say like the Switch could have gotten a refresh. Here's the thing. I don't think the Switch, like I'm glad that they're doing a Switch 2. We
Mhm.
don't know anything about it. I know people have reported that there is some prototypes out there that people have seen. I don't think it needs a whole new Switch 2. You could have done a refresh of the Switch in the last 6 years,
Mhm.
and that would have sold. Because if you remember, that last Switch only got what? An OLED screen?
Yeah.
Battery life wasn't improved, didn't have Bluetooth. They didn't
Well,
like
they did. So they had a Switch, and then they made a newer model Switch that did have better battery life, and then
Mhm.
that Switch got the OLED. So, like, the OLED version does have a better battery than the original Switch model, but
Okay.
to your point, it's still not like a true refresh.
Yeah, it's just they added some things and then that sold.
Yeah.
So I do think that makes sense for Nintendo, but Nintendo's sitting over there doing Nintendo things and they're raking in money. So whatever they're doing, it works. Um, Another thing that I think people forget why these consoles haven't sold like they have in the past is um,
Get ready for story time with Leroy, y'all. What's he bringing out? What's coming out? What we got?
these.
Oh, okay.
I think this was a big deal and why we have not seen the huge sales of consoles like we had in the past. Because if you remember, when the PS4, the PS3, and the Xbox 360 came out, what was the big technology revolution at the time? HD DVD supported by Toshiba, and Sony was pushing Blu-ray. Blu-ray won. Does anybody own an HD DVD? Or HD DVD player, we bought the
Man,
consoles.
did you ever buy one of the Xbox 360 external drives?
I had one
Because I wonder
only
what those are worth
because
on eBay now.
only because only because I used to flip them.
Okay.
So like I would go to like, and this is how crazy Goodwill and these thrift stores were and pawn shops. You could go in these places um, and get those things for like 20 or 30 bucks back in the day. Like you could go to like Goodwill and find PS3s on the shelf or these systems. But the reason why I bring that up is because when we had the physical media revolution between Blu-ray and HD DVD, that actually fueled the console war because you had to choose a format. And everybody was pushing whether you were going to go with Microsoft and Toshiba or if you were going to go with Sony and Blu-ray. Blu-ray eventually won. And that actually helped fuel selling of DVDs and Blu-rays. And actually it was a way for consoles to get bought because people could justify it by saying it isn't just a video game system. I can play movies on this. And that's why I feel like Microsoft was ahead of the curve because remember when Microsoft said that thing about the Xbox, it's not just we want this to be the basis that everything else is around. This is the centerpiece of your entertainment system. And people were like, I want a console. And it was like they were ahead of the curve. They realized that going forward.
Hmm.
No one else figured that out. And I think that is at a detriment because now we're at a point in this life cycle where you don't have that fight anymore between Blu-ray and HD DVD. So you're not having that fuel thrown on the fire of these console sales. So if you look at PS5 sales, I think we're at 55 million consoles sold, whereas PS4 sold over 100 million uh, between the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. I think it's over 100 million. I think PS4 is the one of the top 5 best-selling consoles of all time,
Hmm.
and the Switch is about to catch that,
Hmm.
or has the Switch overtaken that? I can't remember
It's pretty
exactly.
close.
But I think that's one of the problems that I think they're not paying attention to, or maybe they are, and maybe they're just not admitting that. But I think that's a big thing when you're talking about a console refresh because the PS4 added um, 4K.
PS4 Pro.
Yes, the
Yes.
PS4 Pro added 4K, and
Yeah.
I think that's a refresh. And then this PS5 refresh is talking about, yeah, we're gonna have 8K support. Well, the PS5 has 8K for support. It's just that 8K TVs are just expensive.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody with an 8K TV?
You know, I may know two people, but these people that I know are like they gotta have the newest technology. That's their whole thing. For most
Yeah,
people, no. I know people that are still rocking 1080 TVs
yeah.
that are just fine for them. Um,
Mhm.
I was a late adopter to 4K. I don't think I didn't get a 4K TV until man, it might have been like 3 years ago, honestly. I think when I got my job in Charlotte is when I got a 4K
Uh-huh.
TV. Um, but I want to add to your point. Oh, did you take off something? You did that?
No, no, no. No, go ahead.
No, no, no. Did you take the chat away?
No, I did it because it wasn't where it needed to be. I put it back up.
I don't see it anymore if it's still up.
Oh, you mean on the screen?
Yeah.
So let me get it back. I took it down because it wouldn't let me. I was trying to do the overlay. There we go. Sorry.
Okay.
I hit
Um.
it because I was trying to get the chat where I
Oh,
could actually respond to the
got it.
chat at the
Okay,
same time.
I
Go
got you.
ahead.
Yeah. To add to your point about that, I think the reason why, and again, this is my opinion. I don't have any stats to back it up. Just gut feeling. I think the reason why people responded to the console refresh for the PS4, Xbox One generation was because 4K TVs were prevalent, or people were buying 4K TVs, so there was a reason to get that upgrade. And same thing like you're saying now, not a lot of people have 8K TVs. It's 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 a growing market, but it's a fledgling market, and like you said, the PS5, one of the things on the box they talked about, like, oh, this will be able to do 8K stuff eventually once we do upgrades and firmware patches. So it's kind of like, well, what's the point of even getting a PS5? Because if you look at the breakdown from Digital Foundry, which always th- they're like of the tops of people when you're breaking down tech specs, Digital
Mhm.
Foundry is a place to go. And the big thing they're saying is the PS5 Pro isn't going to do things remarkably better than the PS5. It'll just
Yep.
make things smoother. And at that point, smoother, I don't know, like what's the price going to be? Because what does a PS5 cost now? Like a regular PS5
PS5 is
cost?
550. Because
It is
remember, all
550.
over the world. Remember, all over the world, the price went up.
Right. Okay. 550. So we got to think PS5 Pro is 600
600,
at the
six
minimum.
fifty, maybe.
Maybe 650.
Here's the thing, and the reason why I brought up the 550 price is whenever this happened in the past, whenever there was a refresh, the base console dropped in price. When they dropped the refresh and the Pro, whatever it was, that price was the standard price. Whatever the original price was of that system, that's what that new Pro was. Maybe $50, a little bit more, but then they drop, and so they justified that price increase for that refresh by dropping the price of the original system. So when the PS4 Pro came out, it
Yeah.
was at a higher price, but then they dropped the PS4 price. And that's what they did. The same thing with the Xbox Series X Pro. What was the Xbox, that
Which
console,
one?
that refresh? The Xbox
The
refresh.
Xbox One. It was the Xbox One X.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when that refresh came, it was more expensive than the base system, but then that base system dropped in price.
Yeah.
And that always happened. We've seen the reverse. With inflation, Sony has increased the price of their consoles. And here's another thing to add to your argument. The base 8K television, if I want to buy one, they start at 14.99 at Best Buy. That's a 65-inch screen, 8K LG TV.
Huh.
Yep. So, and that's so right now a PS5 will cost you 500 bucks. Or if you buy you can go to GameStop and get it at 474. But if you buy a regular PS5 right now, it's going to cost you $500.
Yeah.
There are a couple of different, like the Sony. Let's buy right now. Now you can get Spider-Man 2. You remember now you can get the Slim, the digital edition for 400. But that's just the digital edition. That's without the disk drive. So that's what you're looking at. And so when you do the Pro, here's my question. Is that Pro going to be a digital only, or is that going to be have a disk drive with it? Because that's going to affect the price as well.
So the leaked rumor was that it'll be detachable like the new PS5 Slim is.
I remember, yeah.
So that's what they're saying is that you can detach it on or off. And people in our chat, we haven't really acknowledged for people in here. Ken from Chicago's commenting, Kay is commenting, 107 Prime was commenting a little earlier, and a lot of them were talking about whether or not 8K is necessary. I mean, they're kind of all hitting on the same thing that we're saying. These are tech savvy people who enjoy tech, and they're saying there's really no need for 8K. Kay was saying she has an 83-inch TV and she's still good with 4K, doesn't need an 8K. So I mean, it's such a as you get higher and higher in resolution, you need such a larger and larger viewing area to actually notice a difference. Not many people are going to have an 83-inch TV to even think about, oh, I need 4K versus 8K. And
Now
you're
here's
also dealing with data caps and internet streams and all that stuff. So yeah.
now here's what I will say. You asked me, did we need it? I say no. That's my opinion. I don't think we need a refresh. Do I think it will sell? Yes. Because
Interesting.
here's why. I don't see a need for PS5 Portal.
Hmm.
Did it sell? Yes, it did. Couldn't keep them in stock. And
Okay.
that's and
Define.
so
Sorry, go ahead. I don't cut you off. Go ahead, and then I'll say
so
something
so
different.
I will say, do I think it will sell? Do I think people will upgrade? Do I think there's going to be a mass of people who do not own a PS5 will go out and buy this system? No, I don't. I think it's a combination of a whole bunch of different people who fuel this console initial bump in sales. I think it's going to be people who are trading in their consoles to get whatever this new refresh is. I think that's one group. I think there will be a group of people because if it launches at the end of the year and they're going to try to get it out so that it's around Christmas time, I think that's another group. So I think those two people. I think there is a small group, and I don't know how many there are. I do think this is a small group who has not been able to buy a PS5 or who haven't gotten around to buying a PS5. I think this is where they get into the PS5 game, that they buy this PS5 Pro console. I think around Christmas time, it'll be after the election, whoever you want to win. I think there will always be this post bump in the economy where people are like, oh, my candidate won, whoever your candidate is. I think that will be a factor for the boost in whatever happens economy wise. So I think all of those factors combined will cause a bump for this to be sold. Now, will it be the PS like the PS5 Pro, VR, where initially sales were great and then they dropped off? I can't tell you. I don't know. But I do believe that this will sell initially. I do believe you're going to see it move. Now, it just depends on how many people are without a PS5 who decide to jump in. It also depends on these specs and what kind of deal you can get by trading in or selling your original PS5 to get the Pro. And it also depends on how many video game companies and the publishers make a game that takes advantage of this, because like you said, we haven't seen a leap in technology video game wise that makes you say, I have to have this game on a PS5 Pro.
Sure.
So Spider-Man 2, by all accounts, was a fantastically looking game. Very few games looked as good as Spider-Man 2. Here's my question. Was it a great game or was it just an okay game? And that's the problem that we're having right now. We're not seeing these great games that are making leaps and bounds graphically, play style, that's making you say, this is why I bought a PS5. That's not happening. There, Cyberpunk, maybe Phantom Liberty is one of those games. Starfield wasn't that game. Um, Elden Ring, maybe. But like, where are these games that have just pushed the boundaries that made you say, this is why I bought this console?
Sure. I think a lot of the games are looking, like you said, as I think the big sexy number is, or the big sexy feature is how it looks. But a lot
Mhm.
of times it's that gameplay. It's something that Kay brought up earlier, you know, and I think it's one of the reasons why Nintendo still succeeds because even though they're underpowered, the art direction for their games, they're always really valuing art direction. That's why stuff like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom still look great on their 1080p Nintendo Switch. Why Mario Kart 8 continues to sell ridiculously and still looks great because of the art direction. So I mean, you can find ways around stuff to not have to worry about having the highest fidelity. But if your gameplay is solid, if you have a great art direction, that's a way around it. Um,
And so I want to bring up what Bank 757 said, and Ken from Chicago said something right after that. He brought up Hogwarts Legacy, and I will give you Hogwarts Legacy based on past Harry Potter games looked amazing, but Hogwarts Legacy was not a game that I looked at and was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Now, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and the last Final Fantasy did look amazing. And it did make you say, huh, okay, those games I will say looked amazing and they looked like PS5 games. But Ken from Chicago says how it looks is easy to market. Often the gameplay is the same old, same old. And I will give that comment some credence because you're right. A game can look amazing
oh man,
and play like crap.
I'm about to compliment one of your people here in a second that I don't want to.
Ooh,
As I read that, I'm like, yeah, it's hard to market gameplay that looks weird and different, but the person that does it, your boy
corner the
Hideo,
market. He's cornered the
your,
market on it.
your boy Hideo is like, you know what? Your games sometimes are not for me, but I can't say that they're not interesting and you're not doing weird stuff. And maybe like deep down, you can say gameplay is the same for everything, but he has a market on making stuff look weird and interesting. He's
And
figured it
and
out.
so and so that's so I will say like when you bring up like Resident Evil 4 looked great, but it also was a remake. The remake was amazing. It looked great. Dead Space, I will say, is like one of the like as far as it looked, that's what I'm looking for in these PS5 games. But once again, that wasn't a brand new IP, brand new game. So perfect example. And here's the thing, Ken, and I agree with you about Ghost of Tsushima, but guess what? Ghost was a PS4 game. Last of Us 2 was a PS4 game. Now they made PS5 versions of them, but none of those games were first party brand new IPs on these new systems. And that's what I'm talking about. That's why I said, what do we need a refresh for? Some people would, and I'm not one of those people, some people will tell you we didn't need the PS5 and the Xbox Series X because at the end of that life cycle is when you got those amazing games. And there
I've
hasn't
heard
been
that.
any. And so, same thing. Remember the PS3? People were like, at the end of the PS3, what did we get at the end of the PS3? There were three games that came out at the end of the PS3. People were like, "Hey, man, we might need a four: Shadow of Colossus, Last of Us, and Uncharted." I think it was three. Didn't three come out on? Was three PS4? Yes, because four Thief's End was
No,
PS4.
Uncharted 3 was PS3.
Yep.
Yeah.
So at the end of the life cycle, you got those three games, and people were like, because those companies had figured out how to actually use the console, how to make games on the console. And I think that's what we're about to I think we're just now seeing console manufacturers have their systems, Sony and Microsoft, actually used in the way they're intended by the developers, because they're finally figuring it out, because there's such a learning curve from just making a game that's going to work on the PS5 and the PS4, the Xbox Series X and the Xbox
One.
One.
Yeah.
So that's where I personally have I take issue with, because right now, what game are you playing?
I'm actually playing Lost Judgment, which is a PS4 game,
Boom.
because it's
I'm
because it's
playing.
on it's part of the PlayStation Plus catalog.
Yep. Um,
What are you playing?
I'm I'm playing, and I'm trying to
Oh no.
excuse me.
Yo,
Uh,
Leroy's dying. You seen it here.
uh,
I didn't think we were doing snuff movies, but I guess we are.
so I'm playing Greedfall.
Okay.
Came out in 2019, and you can tell it looks like it came out in 2019. But here's the thing: I'm still enjoying it, but you can tell it is a game from it is an RPG game from an older generation. And so I'm not telling you that I need the best, most updated console to get enjoyment out of my games. I'm just saying that if you're going to pay for that, then you better have the games that support that. And there's only been a handful of games that have actually taken advantage of these new consoles. Because think about it, how many games are actually holding 60 frames per second? And I believe
On a
Digital
consistent
Foundry,
basis?
yeah,
None.
and
Well, no,
I
sorry, let
think
me not say none. Few.
Digital Foundry said that out of the box, the PS5 Pro is not going to be able to hold 60 frames per second. I think that was one of their knocks on it. So I that's where I'm with you that this isn't needed. But I also think when we talk about consoles, and I also think video game companies, because this to me also in another way goes into the layoffs that video game companies have had to do, because the consoles are not selling the way they are. You don't have that huge customer base where you could make a lot of games, where you could have a niche over here that fuels this game to sell 10 million copies, or fuels this game to sell 15 million copies, because your user base is only 55 million. If your user base on the PS5 is 55 million, and we know PS5 sold more than the Xbox Series X, your game had better sell. Because here's the thing, Spider-Man 2 was the fastest selling first party Sony game ever. Is that correct?
It hit some accolade. I don't know. It
Still
sold a
in
lot, and they still had layoffs.
boom.
Yeah,
So
10
if a,
million
so if a,
copies still had layoffs.
if a game that had the backing of Sony, Spider-Man, Marvel, did not sell enough copies to where they still had to make layoffs, that tells you that AAA games are costing too much to make. There has to be a better way. I feel like Billy Mays right now. There has to be a better way.
There has to be a better way. Yeah.
Also, your customer base isn't the same, because you don't have 100 million people that you're making a game for. You're probably making a game now for 10 to 15 million people, because everybody who has that console is not buying your game. Perfect example, the Dark Souls games or the Souls like games. I'm not buying any of those games because I'm not one of those people. It's not marketed to me. I'm more of a Baldur's Gate guy, Armored
Hmm.
Core, uh, Last of Us. I'll get into some first person shooters and third person shooters, but I'm just not that person. So you're not making a game for me. And so that's what I think is causing some of these layoffs, because they're making these games, these AAA games that are not selling to justify the amount of development that has been going in to make these games because you don't have the customer base anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of just looking at people's comments as they're talking about stuff. I mean, they're talking about the layoffs. They're talking about companies that are doing it right, like Larian. I think Larian just announced, and it's awesome, right? They were the breakout success. And granted, Larian's been around for a while, but they had the breakout success with Baldur's Gate 3, and they said, "Hey, Baldur's Gate 3 was very successful for us, but we're not doing Baldur's Gate 4. So whoever's doing that, more power to them, but it's not us." So I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely up to studio management and how they run their ship in terms of how they can make things happen. So yeah.
And that I think that's one of those things, and we can get into layoffs on another day. I just wanted to bring that up in the sense of you have a company like Insomniac who's laying people off when Insomniac is literally the Chiefs. They may not win the Super Bowl every year, but they're in the running.
Hmm.
So, and if they're having to do layoffs, what does that mean for other companies that are out there who don't have one of the most valuable video game IPs? I mean, Spider-Man is one of the most recognizable characters on the planet. So, if they are having problems, so and so I don't think that there's a refresh necessary, but I also think when we look at this refresh, we can't look at it in a vacuum. There's context that goes with it, and I think it will sell, but I don't think it's necessary. What I do think, if Sony, and I don't know if this is possible, but if someone figures it out, I think that they will end up cornering the market. If Sony or Microsoft can figure out how to play every generation of your games on a handheld, including the current system, you will sell more of those than the Nintendo Switch. I think if you can figure out how to make a handheld Sony PlayStation that can play everything from PS1 games to PS5 games, you will sell more than the Nintendo Switch. If Microsoft can figure that out to basically make a Steam Deck or a handheld that can play every game, because I'm telling you, I would rebuy games that I already own disc wise to play digitally on a PlayStation that I could take on the go. Not cloud-based gaming where it's like you have to already own the game or like it piggybacks off of the play. Nope. I'm talking I click on it, I turn it on like Steam, and I see Last of Us, PS5 Pro, whatever version. I own that game. Okay, I can take that game with me, but also, oh, I don't have that game. I don't have the latest SIL feed. I don't have R type. Oh, I want to guarantee you, and I'm talking from every console generation, you would sell more. And that's my hot take. You would sell more than a Switch.
Okay.
I honestly believe that.
I do not agree with that, but I mean, okay, I won't poop on your parade on that.
I mean, the Steam Deck sold 25 million units,
Sure.
and that's like with what, six PlayStation games?
Yeah, but it doesn't have the whole library though.
That's my point.
Yeah, but I think the issue is the feasibility of getting all that under one roof. Like I don't know. Like I
That's why
think
I
if
said
you do that, how expensive is the console itself, or
I'd pay
the
700.
handheld itself?
I'd pay $700 for it.
Okay, you heard it here,
Oh,
folks.
like that, but that's what I'm trying to say. If you want to fight and you want to compete with this, and you want to compete with a Switch, and you want a console, because that's what Nintendo has figured out. Nintendo's figured out we don't need to make the most graphically intense console. We can still just keep feeding these goddamn paste eaters these simple games. Some of them are great, some of them aren't. Not upgrade and not change and not give the people all these other things that you can get on other handheld consoles and make it affordable, and they'll buy it and they'll eat it up.
Now you
And
just said two things. You said you want them to do everything in the world to give you every game, but also make it affordable.
here's the thing. No, this is the difference with Nintendo and Sony. You don't have to make it affordable if you're Sony. That's my point. You don't have to make it affordable, because if you make that library available, it don't need to be affordable because people will play it. Because here's the thing that you also have, people also haven't figured out. If you make that console, people will figure out a way to get Switch, or to emulate Switch games on it. People will figure out how to get a Steam OS on there and put Linux on there. Because if it's fast enough to be a PS5 in your hand, somebody will figure out how to hack it. And that's what and that's what I'm saying. You don't need to make it affordable. It doesn't need to be $200.
But then
Make
why
that
isn't the Steam Deck, if that's the case, doesn't the Steam Deck fit that criteria already?
Steam Deck fixed that criteria, but it runs on Linux. And it's sold at least 25 million copies. That's
Mhm.
before they made the OLED.
Mhm.
But again, that's the PC gamers, and it doesn't have the entire library that a Sony has. Yes, you have a lot of great games on there, but another thing is the Steam Deck doesn't have every game that you can play on a console playable on a Steam Deck. So when I mean, you have
But
the
can't you
Steam
get
Deck, you
that through
play it.
emulators?
You can, some of them you can get through emulators for the Switch games and some of those other games that you want. But again, those are people who are tech savvy. Those are people who are used to tweaking things. That's what I'm saying. The ease of just having your game, taking out your if this is the handhold, taking out your handhold and going to the Steam Deck library, like if you have a Steam Deck, and just with a couple of clicks and download Elden Ring. That's why people love that thing. That's why people love the Switch. It's the ease of it.
Mhm.
People don't want to emulate. Let me take it back. Not everyone wants to emulate. So if Sony came out with a handheld that played, hell, if Sony came out with a handheld that just played PS4 and PS5 games, they might sell 50 million units. Think about that. Every PS4 and PS5 game on a handheld, not attached to your console right now, that this is a console you can take with you, that
Mhm.
works off of Wi-Fi, that can download that has the PlayStation Store built in, and you just hit play. I'm telling you, that would sell 50 million units.
Okay.
Now, it would be an expensive machine. I'm not a fool in that regard. You're gonna pay for it, but there is an audience that is looking for, and that's the question, Ken. Will you make enough money for the audience to make that system? And I think there is, because I think that's why they made the portal, because that was Sony's way of getting into the handheld market, of them dipping their toe into the handheld market.
Okay.
Now, did they sell enough of them? I don't know. But I do know that they wanted some of that handheld money that Valve was in, because Valve is in this to win it now. A lot of people were like, is Valve gonna? They sold 25 million units of this thing. And here's the thing: every single time one of those handhelds come out, Valve was raking in money because they have the OS that everybody else is trying to emulate. Epic is trying to make their own little OS so that you have to go to Epic Games. That was the whole fight with Apple and Microsoft, because they couldn't have that. Steam already has that. Steam is that. That's what Valve has. That's what Microsoft accused Sony of, and the reason why they were behind and why they spent almost $100 billion, million, sorry, with an M, on buying and acquiring these game developers, because they did not have the IP that Sony had already built up. They did not have the people who were buying into their ecosystem like a Sony did. So if Sony just released a handheld exploiting the IP they already had, I see it making money.
Okay. Folks, that'll do it for us. I'm cutting this off. We hit our time limit with us today.
Yep.
Because Leroy's about to get in some new topics and then we'll never get off the
Well,
air.
I gotta go take a shower. I haven't washed since Friday. Dude,
All
I've
right.
literally I got home. I got home last night from doing the concert.
Uh-huh.
I walked into the door 4 a.m.
Oh gosh.
The
Where was it
concert
at?
was over. Allen Chappelle Auditorium. The
And
concert
where?
was over Chappelle Auditorium, Allen University.
Okay, okay, got it.
Yes, Jay. So here's the thing. Got home 4 a.m. Concert was over at 10. That's how long it took us
To shut everything down.
to know to get everything down.
Hmm.
And there was still another team that came in to get the other part that we didn't get down, the part that they put up. Because in order to build the set, it took us 3 days. The concert was Friday. We started, one group started Monday. We came in on Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So we basically did a week's worth of work from, I'll say, 10:30 till 2 a.m.
Hmm.
To load that truck, the truck and two vans. Then we had to go back to ETV, unload the vans and trucks because they had to take the truck back.
This
The box
concert
truck,
series, was it? This is a recorded thing that will be put together and played
Southern
later,
Songwriters.
or
Southern
okay,
Songwriters is Patrick Davis. He has a tour with all the different songwriters and artists that he plays with. They went all over South Carolina. We recorded 4 of them, and then we'll package that into a TV show that'll be
okay,
shopped around other places, but we'll air the first 4 of
okay.
this series. And so we did basically a week's worth of work in about 5 hours.
Hmm.
And oh, and it rained. Um,
It did rain yesterday.
so not only that, so then I got up, came home, went to sleep, got up, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I'm supposed to help my dad cut firewood today.
Hmm. You can get your brother to sub in?
I don't have a brother anymore.
Oh, no. Okay. All
I
right,
don't know where he
folks.
was. I
This
don't
is
know where
off
he
the air
was.
stuff now. Okay,
Just me
fair
and my
enough.
dad out there with wood, and every time I'd look over, there's a toddler climbing a wood
Okay,
pile.
okay, cool.
So yeah, I had a lot to do
Okay.
in 24 hours. So I'm going to go
What
take
got
a shower.
okay, what got you through the week?
Um, Greedfall. I've been playing that. And old reruns of Law and Order and Friends.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
For me, man, something about this storyline of The Rock teaming up with his cousin Roman Reigns to take on Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins has really got me into wrestling again. I'm really looking forward to WrestleMania 40, and I have kind of been watching SmackDown and Raw on a weekly basis that I haven't done in years.
Hey man,
Um,
they got to do something to get the stench off of Vince McMahon running that company for years.
yeah, I mean, they're going to be fine. People have short memories because
Hey,
nobody is really talking about Vince McMahon or
you
Brock
know
Lesnar.
why?
Why?
Because he's not on TV and he ain't been charged with anything. He just went away. But let me tell you, the problem is if it comes up, which I'm not saying yay or nay, they don't settle with this young lady, and he gets deposed, and Discovery comes out. That's
Hmm.
that's when you'll see the testament of whether or not this company can make it, because none of your stars are being asked these questions. Nobody's
Sure.
having to sit for depositions. Nobody's being interviewed. Like right now, and nobody's asking The Rock about this. Nobody's asking John Cena about this or Dave Batista. Those are your 3 biggest stars in wrestling. Who would be who would have
Don't
hold
say
on.
Dave. That's cute. Don't say
Hold
Dave,
on.
but okay. Uh-huh.
I Let me tell you why he's one of the biggest stars in wrestling. Because Dave Batista's in movies and Dave Batista does press tours.
Hmm.
And Dave Batista literally was just on a press tour for Dune 2. He's not having to answer questions about, did you know that Vince McMahon was having to do this?
Mhm.
Because as soon as that question is posed and asked, that's when that's when you're going to have that question posed to other wrestlers when they do press tours and press junkets. And right now, I will say the WWE does a very good job of making sure that those people don't talk unless it is press that they are approved to talk to. We know that for a fact as many times as we've tried to interview wrestlers. But here's the
Sure.
thing. It's a whole different ball of wax when CNN is running wall-to-wall coverage of Vince McMahon sitting down getting deposed. It's a whole different ball game when The Rock is having to answer questions.
Mhm.
And that's the difference. And that's why I say most popular wrestlers in the sense of in the public spotlight. The average person does not know who Cody Rhodes is.
Fair enough.
The average person doesn't know who Sasha Banks is. The average person doesn't know
They
what
might know Sasha Banks because she's on The Mandalorian.
no, because a lot of people didn't even realize that was Sasha Banks.
Well, then they'll know who her real name is. That's fine.
But what I'm saying is the average person doesn't realize the ecosphere that is wrestling. It's not taken seriously. But it will be taken seriously and questions will be asked if that case actually gets out into the regular media landscape where those people will have to answer those questions.
Sure.
When you were doing a press tour for Ricky Stenicki and you got to ask whether or not you slept with this woman with Vince McMahon,
Mhm.
that that'll change some heads. But I'm happy for you. I'm happy for
Yeah.
wrestling fans to
Yeah.
get what they want.
Let's have Cody finish this story. Folks, that'll be it for us. Will we will we be back next week live? Maybe. I don't know.
Hopefully, I don't know.
Well, hopefully. This seemed to work. I thought I wasn't going to be able to do this because I was going to be passed out sleeping now to be ready for morning stuff in the week, but this seemed to be okay. So I might be able to do this again. So if I'm free, if Leroy's free, we will try to be live again around this time next week.
See.
You guys are having a great conversation. So I would encourage you guys to, I guess, DM each other through YouTube so y'all can continue this conversation because you guys are having good stuff about different TV shows. And that'll probably be another press play we'll do eventually about what we're watching overall. Um, until then,
Uh,
we'll be back with more stuff, folks. Later. See you next week, hopefully. Peace.
we're out. See,